Well, Yorkshire was once dubbed the cradle of modern sculpture. And the late great Henry Moore and Barbara Hepworth helped define the art form. Now, decades on from their deaths, their legacy continues to attract record visitor numbers and millions of pounds of arts funding here to Yorkshire.
Yorkshire's artists have produced some of the world's most iconic sculpture. From towering bronzes to pickled sharks, giants of the art world like Henry Moore and Barbara Hepworth have helped define modern sculpture for more than a century.
It's the most wonderful accident. It's a bit like Leonardo and Michelangelo both coming from Florence at the same time.
And it's a legacy that's paying dividends.
I think people want the opportunity to celebrate a local hero like Barbara Hepworth with all that she achieved. We're going to have a world-class building by one of the world's greatest architects, celebrating one of the world's greatest artists.
And we go back to nature with Andy Goldsworthy as he continues that tradition of sculpture in the landscape.
Yorkshire is particularly important because it was where I grew up.
Henry Moore once said that sculpture is an art of the open air. He said he'd rather have his work displayed outdoors in the landscape than in any gallery. And that seems to be the founding principle behind this place, the Yorkshire Sculpture Park. It's 30 years since this man opened the park.
Barbara Hepworth was born in Wakefield. And Henry Moore actually, when he was still alive when the Sculpture Park first started, and he was our founding patron. He came very early on, he was generous, he was helpful, and we've always had a relationship with him. And we learned a lot from him as well. He came and gave his advice, he told us what we were doing right, what we were doing wrong. So we learned a great deal from him. But we're also very concerned with developing younger artists as well.
Walking around the 500-acre site, there are more than a few surprises. This is a little house on a hill and it's made of galvanised steel, so even though we're indoors, the wind is whistling right through it. You get the most beautiful 360-degree panoramic views from up here, but even though it's completely open to the elements, it feels surprisingly claustrophobic. It's very unsettling.
When the Sculpture Park first started, nobody was interested in contemporary sculpture, particularly in Yorkshire or the north of England. We didn't have anything at all. We started with £1,000 from the Arts Council. We now employ over 100 staff. We get 300,000 visitors a year. We contribute to the economy. We have people coming from all over the world.
Last year, Andy Goldsworthy's show broke all records for visitors, marking the park's 3-decade anniversary and leaving major permanent works behind. He used animal blood and sheep droppings alongside stone and wood.
I was actually brought up 5 miles from Leeds city centre and worked on a farm.
He now lives and works in a small village in Scotland.
Well, whenever I can, which is most days, I go out and make a work, an ephemeral work. That I usually don't know what I'm going to make. It's done in the spirit of discovery. I pick things up, work with them, see what they can do, respond to the light, the weather. And a lot of those things result in terrible sculptures that fail. I mean, sometimes they physically fail, they fall down or collapse, or if it's snow it can start thawing, or if it's ice it can start melting. But some of them are just really awful sculptures, that really just dreadful things. But they're experimentations, and that's what they've done. They're done in the spirit of experimentation.
Henry Moore and Barbara Hepworth, have they been important to you?
Henry Moore in particular has helped me to understand how, when you place work out in the landscape, how you should be restrained in the way that you try and explain that placement.
If you go to look at the tors and outcrops of the Pennines, Brimham Rocks, the Bridestones above Pickering, you can see the influence that that kind of stratified, raw landscape had on the work of Moore and Hepworth. If they had been born anywhere but in Yorkshire, both Moore and Hepworth would have been completely different artists. Of that I have no doubt.
During their lifetimes, both artists undoubtedly influenced each other's development as sculptors. Born just 10 miles apart, they trained together at the Leeds School of Art, becoming lifelong friends. Their work is coveted all over the world and commands enormous sums.
I can't think of another county which has made more of a contribution to 20th century British sculpture, indeed sculpture of any century, than Yorkshire.
Inside this unassuming Victorian house lies one of the art world's best kept secrets.
Well, Wakefield's is a very important collection.
The Wakefield Corporation began collecting art when it opened this gallery in 1930. Back then, many mocked modern sculpture, but the council now has a collection of priceless Moore and Hepworth it hasn't the space to exhibit.
Both Moore and Hepworth were very keen to see, the best examples of their work in the gallery that was in their home area. The star piece that people are always drawn to is the Elmwood reclining figure by Henry Moore from 1936, and it is considered to be his best carving in wood. Henry Moore asked for 130 guineas for it at that point, and the local council balked at that, and then he reduced it to, I think, 120 guineas.
I mean, it's an extraordinary amount of money to pay
it is,
for
yes.
a priceless sculpture. For decades, work has been stored unseen by the public for safekeeping.
What makes them really exciting is that a lot of artists actually destroy these once they've been cast in bronze or in other metals. But Hepworth kept on to these. I think she saw them as being sort of almost unique sculptures in themselves.
But soon those and dozens of other major pieces donated as a gift from Barbara Hepworth's family will have a new home. Across Wakefield, the skyline is changing. The Hepworth Wakefield, a £30 million gallery and art complex, is taking shape. It's partly about the city reclaiming its most famous daughter.
Lots of friends of mine said, oh, they're building a gallery for Barbara Hepworth in Wakefield. Why? I mean, isn't she born and bred in St Ives in Cornwall? Well, of course, no. She was born in Wakefield, lived here for the first 18 years of her life. The landscape here and Wakefield itself was hugely influential on her early development. And this is a wonderful opportunity to celebrate her roots and origins in this region.
And like their predecessors, the council has once again been bold and ambitious, investing in the legacy of its great local artists, this time by employing an internationally renowned architect to design the new building.
Cultural projects like this are seen as part of regeneration programme. But I think it's very important not to see them only as a regeneration project. I mean, I think my statement always is that this has to be first and foremost for the community. It will help regenerate this area, it will improve the external image of Wakefield, it will improve the internal image of Wakefield, I hope, and it will bring visitors.
This building is not just about pioneering architecture, it's also been a spectacular feat of engineering. They've had to move the River Calder 10 metres just to put this construction site in. And but for these steel sheet piles, I'd be underwater right now. In fact, the gallery will appear to sit in the water. And it's hoped that when the Hepworth Wakefield opens in 2010, the city's extraordinary artistic legacy will have a home worthy of the artist and the collection that inspired it.
That's all from here in Wakefield. Matthew Wright is back next week with Inside Out stories from across the country. I'm Jamie Coulson, and thanks for watching Inside Out.